Act 1. The illusion's grip. The Chicago skyline burned against the twilight, a jagged crown of glass and steel, promising everything: love, purpose, escape, but delivering only questions. Daniel Harper, a 38-year-old philosophy professor, stood frozen at the edge of a rooftop bar, his face etched with too many late nights. The city's pulse throbbed below, a restless beast of honking cabs and neon signs. But Daniel's world narrowed to one point: Claire Monroe, a woman whose presence rewrote the laws of gravity. Her auburn hair caught the light like a flame. Her laughter sliced through the bar's clamor, sharp, unguarded, daring the universe to keep up. Why her? Daniel wondered. His fingers tightened around a whiskey glass. Why now? He wasn't a man who believed in fate. In his lecture halls at Northwestern, Daniel peeled back the myths of human existence, wielding Arthur Schopenhauer's philosophy like a blade. Love, he'd tell his students, his voice low and deliberate, is a fraud. It's not a choice. It's a biological hook, baited by the will. A blind, relentless force that drives life to reproduce, to suffer, to repeat. His students nodded, scribbled notes, then rushed off to their dating apps, oblivious to the trap he described. But Daniel knew it intimately. He'd felt its pull before: fleeting crushes, failed relationships, the ache of wanting something you couldn't name. Yet tonight, watching Claire lean against the bar, her eyes catching his with a spark in the dark, he felt it again, stronger than ever. Is this what drowning feels like? He thought. Or waking up? The hook was alive, and it was ravenous. The rooftop buzzed with Chicago's young elite, tech entrepreneurs, artists, lawyers unwinding after another relentless day. Daniel, in his tweed blazer and scuffed loafers, felt like an imposter among them. He'd always been more at home with dead philosophers than living crowds. Schopenhauer, his intellectual lodestar, had warned him. The will doesn't negotiate. It's the primal engine of existence, a metaphysical force that cares nothing for reason or dreams. Every desire, every longing, every glance across a room, it's all a puppetry, designed to drag humanity forward, one generation at a time. Claire, with her easy charm and sharp smile, was its latest masterpiece. He didn't mean to approach her. His plan was to finish his drink, slip out, return to his Lakeview apartment, where a stack of ungraded papers awaited. But Claire's gaze locked onto his, and before he could resist, she raised her glass in a silent toast. The gesture was effortless, almost playful, but it hit him like a current. Don't do this, his mind warned. You know what this is. But his feet moved anyway, drawn by a force older than logic. Rough day at the office? Or are you just brooding for fun? Claire asked as he reached the bar, her voice warm with a hint of mischief. Up close, she was even more disarming. Green eyes that seemed to see through him. A freckle just above her lip that he couldn't stop noticing. Daniel managed a half smile. Brooding's my cardio, he said, leaning against the bar to steady himself. I'm Daniel, by the way. Claire, she replied, tilting her head. Graphic designer by day, amateur philosopher by night. What's your excuse for looking like you're solving the meaning of life? He laughed, surprised by how easily it came. I teach philosophy at Northwestern. Schopenhauer's my specialty. He'd say the meaning of life is suffering, and we're all just too distracted to notice. Claire's eyes lit up. Oh, you're that guy, the one who ruins romance for everyone. She leaned closer, her voice dropping conspiratorially. So, tell me, Professor, when you see a woman like me, do you see a person, or just, what? A biological trap? The question caught him off guard, sharp and direct. He could have deflected, thrown out a safe line, but something in her gaze demanded honesty. Schopenhauer would say you're the will's favorite weapon, he admitted, his voice low. Beauty, charm, that spark in your eyes. It's all designed to pull us in, to keep the species going. Nothing personal. Claire didn't flinch. Instead, She grinned, as if she'd won a round. That's cold, Daniel. But what about you? When you look at me, do you really just see some cosmic con? Or is there a part of you buried deep that wants to believe it's more? The air between them crackled. Daniel felt the will's hook dig deeper, urging him to lean in, to chase the feeling. This is how it starts, he thought. The illusion, the lie. But he couldn't look away. Maybe I'm curious, he said finally. But curiosity's dangerous. Then let's be dangerous, Claire replied, her smile daring him to keep up. Their conversation spilled into the night, moving from the bar to a quiet corner of the rooftop, where the city's glow felt like a stage set just for them. Claire matched him quip for quip, challenging his cynicism with her own blend of wit and wonder. She spoke of her art, how she poured herself into designs that told stories, how she believed beauty could mean something beyond biology. You can't reduce everything to suffering, she argued, her hands gesturing passionately. What about the moments that make you feel alive? A song, a painting, a look that stops your heart. Those are the will's best tricks, Daniel countered. But his voice lacked conviction. Claire's energy was infectious, pulling him out of his head and into the moment. When she suggested a walk along Lake Michigan, he didn't hesitate. The city's noise faded as they reached the shoreline, the water lapping softly under a starless sky. You're not what I expected, Claire said, pausing to face him. The wind tugged at her hair, and Daniel fought the urge to brush it from her face. I thought you'd be all gloom and doom, but there's something else in you. Something... I'm hopeful. He shook his head, a bitter smile forming. Hope's just another hook, Claire. Schopenhauer would say we're not falling for each other. We're falling for the will's plan. It wants us to pair up, to breed, to keep the cycle going. She stepped closer, her breath visible in the cool air. And what if I don't care about your dead philosopher? What if I think this, she gestured between them, is worth the risk? For a moment, Daniel let himself imagine it. A life with Claire. Mornings tangled in sheets. Evenings debating over coffee. A future that defied his theories. But Schopenhauer's voice roared back. This is the trap. She's the bait. He stepped back, breaking the spell. I don't know if I can believe in that, he said quietly. Claire's smile faltered, but she didn't push. Then let's find out, she said, her voice soft but resolute. Stick around, Daniel. See if I'm worth proving wrong. As they parted ways, her number scrawled on a napkin in his pocket. Daniel felt the weight of her challenge. The will had him in its grip, but Claire's words lingered, a flicker of defiance against his bleak worldview. What if she's right? He wondered, the question gnawing at him as he disappeared into the city's shadows. Don't walk away now, dear listener. Daniel's story is just beginning. A battle between heart and mind, love and truth. Will he surrender to the will's masquerade, or find a way to break free? Keep listening to uncover the choices that will define him. And maybe, just maybe, reflect your own. Act 2. The machinery of desire. The Chicago winter crept in, wrapping the city in a gray shroud that mirrored Daniel Harper's growing unease. 3 months had passed since that electric night on the rooftop, and Claire Monroe had become a fixture in his life. A vibrant, disarming presence that both thrilled and terrified him. Their days were a blur of late-night diners, her sketching wild, colorful designs on napkins, while he dissected Schopenhauer's grim metaphysics over greasy coffee. Their nights were softer, tangled in the sheets of his Lakeview apartment, her warmth a fleeting shield against the cold certainty of his beliefs. Yet, with every touch, every shared laugh, Daniel felt the shadow of the will tightening its grip. Claire was everything he hadn't expected. Sharp, curious, unafraid to challenge him. She'd sit cross-legged on his couch, her sketchpad balanced on her knees, and fire back at his lectures on the will. So, what, Daniel? Every time I kiss you, it's just nature's puppet strings, she'd ask, her green eyes glinting with defiance. What about the way my heart races when you look at me? You're telling me that's just biology? He'd smirk, hiding the tremor her words sparked. "Exactly," he'd say, quoting Schopenhauer. "The will doesn't care about your heart. It wants you to breed, to keep the species trapped in suffering." But even as he spoke, his resolve wavered. Claire wasn't just a vessel of the will. She was alive, real, a force that made his carefully constructed theories feel like ash. Their apartment, once a sterile haven of books and ungraded papers, now bore her mark. A half-finished canvas by the window, a stack of her design magazines on the coffee table, the faint scent of her jasmine perfume lingering in the air. Daniel loved it, hated it, feared it. Every detail was a hook, pulling him deeper into the illusion Schopenhauer had warned him about. Love, the philosopher had said, was the will's cruelest trick, a mirage of meaning that masked the brutal machinery of reproduction. Daniel saw it in Claire's smile, in the curve of her hip, in the way her laughter could silence his doubts for hours at a time. "She's not choosing this," he told himself. "Neither am I. We're just pawns." The tension began to surface one snowy evening in their apartment. Claire, wrapped in one of Daniel's old sweaters, was sketching a mural concept for a client. A vibrant explosion of color that seemed to mock the gray world outside. "What do you think?" she asked, holding up her pad. Daniel, hunched over a stack of student essays, barely glanced up. "It's bold," he said, his voice flat. She frowned, setting the sketch down. "You've been distant lately. What's going on in that head of yours?" He wanted to lie, to brush it off, but her gaze pinned him. "I'm just thinking," he said, running a hand through his hair. "About us, about what this is." "This?" Claire's voice sharpened. "You mean us being together, falling in love?" "Love," Daniel echoed, the word heavy on his tongue. "Schopenhauer would say it's not love. It's the will, Claire. It's nature using us to perpetuate itself. Every time I look at you, I feel it, this pull. It's not rational. It's not even us." Claire's face tightened, her eyes flashing with hurt and frustration. "So, what? I'm just some siren luring you into a trap. That's how you see me." She stood, her sketchpad falling to the floor. "I'm not a philosophy problem, Daniel. I'm a person." He stood too, his voice rising despite himself. "I know you're a person, but that doesn't change what's underneath it all. The will doesn't care about our feelings. It's why we're drawn to each other, why we can't stop. It's not about us. It's about the species, about keeping the cycle going." Claire shook her head, her voice breaking. "You're so busy fighting some invisible force you can't even see what's right in front of you. I love you, Daniel. Not because of some cosmic trick, but because of you, your stupid theories, your messy hair, the way you make me think. Why can't you let that be enough?" Her words hit like a fist, cracking the armor of his convictions. He wanted to reach for her, to pull her close, to drown out the doubts. But Schopenhauer's voice echoed louder. "This is the trap. She's the bait." He turned away, staring out the window at the snow swirling over Lake Michigan. "I don't know if I can," he said quietly. The rift grew over the weeks. Claire pushed for more. Talks of moving in fully, of marriage, of a future together. "Let's build something real," she said one night, her voice soft with hope as they sat at their favorite diner, the neon sign flickering outside. "A home, maybe kids someday. Don't you want that?" Daniel's throat tightened. He saw it clearly. The house, the family, the endless grind of providing, all to serve the will's relentless agenda. "I need time," he managed. Watching her face fall, the light in her eyes dimming, he threw himself into his work. His lectures on Schopenhauer growing more intense, almost manic. His students noticed, whispering about the professor who seemed to be arguing with himself. At a university gala, Claire shone in a green dress, her laughter drawing admiring glances from colleagues. Daniel stood apart, nursing a drink, his mind spiraling. A colleague, Dr. Ellis, clapped him on the shoulder. "You've got a good one, Harper. Don't let her slip away." But Daniel's thoughts were darker. "She's not mine. She's the will's, her beauty, her charm. It was all a design, a lure to pull him into the cycle of desire and suffering. Hold on tight, listener. Daniel's world is unraveling. Caught between the woman he loves and the philosophy he can't escape. Will he surrender to Claire's vision of a shared life? Or will Schopenhauer's bleak truth pull him under? Keep listening to see how far the will's grip extends, and whether Daniel can find a way to fight it. Act 3. The path to clarity. The Chicago spring arrived reluctantly, a hesitant bloom of green against the city's concrete sprawl. Daniel Harper's apartment, once warmed by Claire Monroe's sketches and laughter, now felt like a tomb. Silent, cluttered with the ghosts of their life together. The confrontation that had shattered them still echoed in his mind. Claire, her eyes red and raw, had stood in their living room, clutching his journal, its pages filled with Schopenhauer's bleak truths about love, women, and the will. "Is this what I am to you?" she demanded, her voice cracking as she read his words aloud. She is the will's vessel, her beauty a trap, her love a lie. A biological trick. That's all we are? Daniel had tried to explain, to soften the blow, but his words cold, academic, only widened the chasm. "It's not you, Claire," he'd said. "It's the will. It's what drives everything." She'd shaken her head, tears falling. "You're so lost in your books, you can't even see me." That night, she packed a bag and left, the door's quiet click louder than any slam. Weeks bled into months, and Daniel drowned himself in routine. He taught his classes at Northwestern with mechanical precision, his lectures on Schopenhauer's metaphysics sharper, more fervent, as if he could outrun his pain by diving deeper into the philosopher's truths. But at night, alone in his apartment, the will's hooks remained. Claire's jasmine scent lingering in a forgotten scarf. Her half-finished sketch of Lake Michigan pinned to the wall. He saw her everywhere. In the diner where they'd argued over coffee. In the shoreline where they'd walked under a starless sky. In the faces of strangers who carried her same spark. This is the will's punishment, he thought. To make you crave what you know is a lie. Daniel's unraveling reached its peak one stormy April night. Sitting at his desk, surrounded by dog-eared books and empty whiskey glasses, he stared at a blank page, unable to write. Schopenhauer's words, once a lifeline, now felt like chains. The wise man does not follow his lust. He extinguishes it. But how? How could he extinguish the ache that Claire had left behind? The part of him that still wanted to believe in her. In them? He hurled his journal across the room, its pages fluttering like wounded birds. "What do you want from me?" he shouted, his voice swallowed by the rain lashing the windows. The will, silent and relentless, offered no answer. The turning point came unexpectedly. During a late-night walk along Lake Michigan, the city's lights shimmered on the water, a fragile beauty that mirrored his fractured thoughts. Daniel paused, the wind biting his face, and remembered a line from Schopenhauer. "Freedom is not in fulfilling desire, but in renouncing it." For the first time, he didn't see it as a condemnation, but as a challenge. What if he could step outside the will's machinery, not by fighting it, but by seeing it clearly? What if Claire's absence wasn't a loss, but an opportunity to break free? He began to change. Mornings found him meditating in his apartment, focusing on his breath to quiet the will's restless pull. He stopped drinking. The whiskey replaced by black coffee that kept him sharp. He took long walks through Chicago's parks, noticing the world, the rustle of leaves, the laughter of children. With a clarity he'd never known, he read Schopenhauer again, not as a prophet of doom, but as a guide to transcendence. The will was real, yes, but it wasn't invincible. By naming it, by refusing to chase its illusions, Daniel felt the first stirrings of peace. His lectures shifted too. Where once he'd preached despair, he now spoke of possibility. Schopenhauer doesn't just show us the trap, he told his students, his voice steady with conviction. He shows us a way out. The will drives us, but we can choose to step back, to see it for what it is. That's where freedom begins. His students leaned forward, captivated, sensing the change in him. Daniel wasn't just teaching. He was living his words. The final test came in June. At a small bookstore in Wicker Park hosting a philosophy talk, Daniel was there to speak on Schopenhauer. His notes a blend of the philosopher's ideas and his own hard-won insights. As he scanned the crowd, his breath caught. Claire stood near the back, her auburn hair catching the dim light. She was with a man, his arm around her waist, her laugh as bright as ever. For a moment, the old ache surged, the will's hook tugging at his heart. He imagined crossing the room, pulling her aside, begging her to come back, but he stopped himself, breathing deeply, grounding himself in the moment. Claire met his gaze, her smile softening with recognition. There was no anger in her eyes, only a quiet acceptance. Daniel nodded, a small gesture of acknowledgement, not for the will's illusion, but for the woman she was, separate from his theories. She wasn't a trap, not anymore. She was Claire, a person who'd loved him, who'd challenged him, who'd shown him the limits of his own mind. As he stepped to the podium, the crowd hushed, their faces eager for his words. Daniel set his notes aside, speaking from a place deeper than intellect. Schopenhauer tells us the world is driven by a blind will, a force that traps us in desire. In suffering, he began, his voice clear and strong. But he also tells us we can see through it. We can choose not to chase the illusions. Love, success, pleasure that keep us bound. Freedom isn't in having what you want. It's in wanting less. In finding peace in the space between desires. The audience listened, rapt. But Daniel spoke to himself as much as to them. He wasn't free, not entirely. The will still pulsed beneath his skin, a quiet hum of longing. But he was no longer its puppet. As he finished, his eyes found Claire one last time. She clapped, her smile proud, then turned to leave with her companion. Daniel let her go, the ache fading into something softer, something like gratitude. Stay with us, listener. Daniel's journey isn't over, but he's found a sliver of light in Schopenhauer's darkness. Will he hold fast to this fragile piece? Or will the will find new ways to pull him back? Keep listening to discover what lies beyond the illusion and what it means to truly be free. Summer draped Chicago in golden light. But for Daniel Harper, clarity was his new season. Months after seeing Claire at the bookstore, he stood alone on the Lake Michigan shore, the water's rhythm, a quiet counterpoint to his thoughts. Schopenhauer's will still lingered, a primal pulse beneath his calm, but it no longer ruled him. Through meditation, solitude, and relentless self-scrutiny, Daniel had carved a fragile freedom. He saw the world not as a trap, but as a challenge. To live with open eyes, to choose meaning over illusion. Claire had moved on. Her life, a distant melody now. Daniel didn't resent her. She'd been his mirror, reflecting both his fears and his potential. In letting her go, he'd released the will's hold, trading desire's fleeting heat for a steadier peace. His lectures now drew crowds, his words a beacon for those wrestling with their own chains. The will drives us, he'd say, but we can step outside its dance. Freedom is in the pause, the choice to be still. As the sun dipped below the skyline, Daniel smiled, the weight of his old life lifting. He wasn't a saint, but he was no puppet. The will's masquerade would always beckon, but he'd learned its steps and chosen his own. Listener, don't stop here. Daniel's path invites you to question what illusions hold you. Step forward, see clearly, and find your own freedom.